Welcome. This is Noble Vision Exposure video series. Our aim is to discuss with you whether the truth that is visible to the world is really the truth. We talked about how they have gained control of the world through global politics and how they are misleading the public in regions such as society, religion, art and culture. Today as well, you and I are their pawns. At the conclusion of the Noble Vision Exposure video series, we clarify why we as humans must recognize the truth and the lie before we can see it. So let's talk about other delusions in this world in today's episode. This is the fifth part of our series. Our story begins today with the 9/11 attack. 2001. That morning in America was busy and ordinary. Just as silence preceded every calamity, on September 11, 2001, Americans had to face a great tragedy. 9/11 resulted from the confluence of multiple factors. Islamic extremism was stirred by the Iranian Revolution, the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, and the assassination of the Egyptian president. That extremism turned anti-American because of US support for Israel and repressive and secular Arab regimes. The terrorists did not have the capacity to destroy the United States militarily, so they set their sights on symbolic targets instead. The Twin Towers as the centerpieces of the World Trade Center symbolized globalization and America's economic power and prosperity. American Airlines Flight 11 and United Airlines Flight 175 were flown into the World Trade Center's North and South Towers, respectively, and American Airlines Flight 77 hit the Pentagon. United Airlines Flight 93 crashed in a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, after passengers attempted to overpower the hijackers. The September 11 attacks killed almost 3,000 people, making them the deadliest terrorist attack in history. The War on Terror, officially the Global War on Terrorism, is a global military campaign initiated by the United States following the September 11 attacks and is the most recent global conflict spanning multiple wars. How was Osama bin Laden involved? After contesting the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan in the 1980s, the Saudi nationalist Osama bin Laden organized a network of unconventional combatants known as Al-Qaeda. Bin Laden believed that the stationing of US troops in Saudi Arabia during the Gulf War of 1990-91 violated the sacred spaces around Mecca and Medina, and in 1996 he essentially declared war on the United States. Is 9/11 attack giant hoax for the New World Order? Right after the collapse of Soviet Union, this attack happened. As a superpower, the United States needs to convince you of a worldwide threat. These wars that are going on around the world by this military campaign started by the US government called War on Terror are not real wars. Therefore, this phase of terror was created as a facade to achieve its major goals in the Middle East and the world. Also, we know that the Americans were also against the Soviet Union during the Cold War in 1947, 2 years after the World War II. In a 2004 article entitled Al-Qaeda's Origins and Links, the BBC wrote that during the anti-Soviet war, bin Laden and his fighters received American and Saudi funding. Some analysts believed bin Laden himself had security training from the CIA. And also, in an article in The Guardian, Robin Cook, the British Foreign Secretary from 1997 to 2001, would state that bin Laden was, though a product of a monumental miscalculation by Western security agencies. Throughout the 80s, he was armed by the CIA and funded by the Saudis to wage jihad against the Russian occupation of Afghanistan. Al-Qaeda, literally the database, was originally a computer file of thousands of mujahideen who were recruited and trained with the help from the CIA to defeat the Russians. In a 1995 interview, bin Laden himself would state that To counter these atheist Russians, the Saudis chose me as their representative in Afghanistan. I settled in Pakistan in the Afghan border region. There I received volunteers who came from the Saudi Kingdom and from all over the Arab and Muslim countries. I set up my first camp where these volunteers were trained by Pakistani and American officers. The weapons were supplied by the Americans, the money by Saudis. Also, at that time, the Soviet Union had become the common enemy of Al-Qaeda and United States due to the invasion of Afghanistan, and Al-Qaeda was funded with the support of the United States and received armed training from the ISI and CIA. These statements of Osama bin Laden prove that. We need to understand that these actions of the US government are only done according to Zionism and New World Rule to build towards global dominance. By now, it should be pretty obvious that 9/11 was an inside job. The United States and the rest of the world are currently revealing the root of all of these conspiratorial attacks. Meanwhile, during the service of the American author John Perkins, he writes as his confession, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. This book reveals the detailed story of his life and who is responsible for the 9/11 attacks, and the root cause of American government's brutal killing of its innocent American people is well proven. You need to understand that this evil world and national politicians have the ability to trap their countrymen in debt and kill their innocent people for global as well as nationalistic, economic and political goals. Forget all those facts for a moment. Do you remember the Easter attack in Sri Lanka on April 21st, 2019?